Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I want to talk about deal breakers. Deal breakers, maybe it's a familiar idea, maybe you've never heard of it. Deal breakers are things that cannot be allowed in an agreement, or else you would say the agreement can't exist. And everything else might be savory and satisfactory, but if there are deal breakers, you would say no thank you at that point. So I want to talk about romance and the deal breakers that make getting to know somebody not just preferable, but very, very important. And, you know, if you're trying to have a companion versus a warm body, for example, a deal breaker is something that you want to find out sooner rather than later. This is why people get to know each other. This is why there's a phrase that goes along the lines of buy me dinner first. Maybe you've heard that one, where before you jump in the sack with somebody and form some kind of commitment or emotional bond, you want to get to know them a little bit and discover, hopefully, soon the deal breakers that may or may not exist. So some of them are optional. Some deal breakers are common. Things like, oh, this person has some religious view that I don't agree with, if you are super spiritual, or if a person has, you know, just for example, I don't want to throw out too many examples, but there are obviously deal breakers that go around that are expected, that, you know, shouldn't necessarily be considered criminal or, you know, a bad mark for a person, but would break the deal of having a relationship between two people necessarily. So I want to just point out one thing. So there's a common misconception going around. The point of this video is I see evidence all over the place of people being confused about what it should take for people to be attracted to each other, to be ready to commit to each other, and I'm seeing tons of superficial expectations where people look at you and they say, okay, take this person, this other person, this third party, for example, you know, prospective mate or female. If you're a heterosexual male, you're looking at the female and you're saying, oh, they tell you, the third party says, why wouldn't you, you know, for example, choose this girl? What's wrong with you? Okay, well, on the surface, maybe this makes sense, but if you look at it in the context of what I just said, well, I don't know. Honestly, the answer is I don't know until I talk to her. I don't know until we get to know each other, because there might be deal breakers. There might be a handful of them. She might be a drug addict. She might be a pathological liar. She might be a homicidal maniac. She might be, you know, any number of things that would be, for me, a deal breaker. And you don't actually know that until you get to know somebody. And, you know, those are some of the negative things that you can discover about somebody, but on the flip side of that coin, there are obviously good things too to get to know somebody for, to discover their endearing attributes, the reasons why you might be even more attracted to them. And I like to say that there are actually three people in a couple, and that's going to sound funny. Think about, there's two people obviously in a couple, but the third person emerges between them, if you will. It's the connection between them, the dynamic that emerges by itself. It forms the nucleus in families between a man and a woman, for example, who love each other, which becomes a loving space, a supportive, healthy, hopefully happy space for a child at some point. And I don't want to digress down that road, but there are a lot of reasons to get to know somebody before you commit to them. It used to be common, just to wrap up the video, it used to be very common that arranged marriages would happen where people would be forced into it before they met each other for financial reasons or for political reasons. People would be traded like bargaining chips, and it should seem inappropriate. It should seem kind of questionable, and if you can't read the proposal before any kind of deal in general, not just with romance or marriage, but if you can't actually review the terms before you're forced to agree to it, that's kind of a shady situation. There's only one reason for that, and that's because it's not in your interest, it's in somebody else's interest. It's in the interest of her parents or some, you know, political party, or for some financial reason, which is not a good basis to form a marriage or a romance. Hopefully we can agree that the best romances are centered on love. Okay, that love has to happen, and it's expected. Even in arranged marriages, they say, well, you'll grow to love each other. Okay, maybe, yeah, I guess if we have no choice, but I feel like there's another way to do it that's even better. Honestly, choosing voluntarily because we love each other and because we're responsible people who know ourselves well enough to be able to commit to something on our own terms, and with just as much expectation of permanency. I think, I said the last thing, but this is the true last thing. People who are in favor of arranged marriages and such, they believe that they have a higher success rate, which is true because they're forced, right? You have fewer options, the less ability to opt out. Of course, you're going to have a higher success rate, but I don't think you have a higher happiness rate. I think that the vast majority of people just don't have experience or maturity enough to be able to make those kinds of decisions on their own, but some people do. Some people, if allowed to explore options on their own, meet people, and spend a little bit of quality time in advance, and then mutually agree between them with no third-party interference that they want to stay together, I believe that these are the happiest people. And I also believe that maybe some people aren't meant to be together forever. I don't believe that people are meant to be forced to do very many things at all in general, especially the things that matter the most, like romance. That's my opinion. Anyway, reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.